Here's a tutorial on Allegro in F major by Ferdinand Beyer. This is from the Adult Piano Adventures, Book 2, page 36. So as the title says, we're in the key of F major. So I'm going to have us quickly do an F major scale warm-up here. So let's start with the right hand first. Left hand. Both hands. And we could also add the arpeggio, just one octave. And the chord progression. Okay, so now that our hands are warmed up in the key of F major, let's take a look at the form of the piece. So we have measure 1 to 16 as one section. So that would be the A section. And then we go from 17 to the D, C, Al fine at the bottom of the second page of the piece. So it's measure 22, 23, 24. 17 to 24 is section B. And then it goes back because of the da capo al fine. We go back to the beginning of the A section and end at measure 16 at the fine. So this is a very standard ABA format. And before I forget, we also have that little repeat for the A section. So technically it's AABA again. All right, so first off with this idea called the motive. So we have that written at the very beginning. And then we have what we call the imitation, which is the same melody, just in a different hand or different octaves. So it's the octave lower. And they kind of alternate and do this little dance back and forth for page 1. And then it kind of extends itself with that really nice melodic line at 13. And this is actually one of the spots that I would heavily practice above everything else, just because the fingering takes some getting used to. So that's pretty cool. So we have, and then it goes, so it kind of extends into that 6th pretty quickly. But not to worry, we'll definitely dive more into that later. But first, let's focus on the back and forth play that's happening on page 1. So initially, I'm going to have us start off with the F 5-finger pattern, keeping in mind your B flats in both hands. So reaching a little further in to keep where those B flats are within the finger 2 and 4. But let's practice the alternating. So if we're looking at just measure 1 to 5, we could practice it like this. Or we could even take out the downbeat of one hand and go into the next. So it's like a continuous 8th note back-to-back pattern. So example would be like this. So just practicing the consistency of those 8th notes back-to-back. And then you could also practice how I showed you initially with the hands alternating with the melody. Okay, another way we can practice this section would be my favorite doing, so our waltz pattern with these chords. There's only 2 chords for the first page, and then top of page 2, 5, 7, 1, 5, 7, 1. Then we have the introduction of the 5, 7 chord. But to practice the first page, I would do something like this. So you're not quite doing the coordination of the waltz pattern yet, but just getting an idea of what chord is to be expected as you play through the melody. Going into measure 5, here we have the 4 chord B flat major. So if we're just isolating right hand for measure 5 to 8, with that B flat, here's our tempo, 1 and 2 and 3 and. Measure 7, reach for the D, C. So each of these measures has that 1, 2, 1. So if you stripped that away, it would be measure 5, B flat, measure 6, A, reach to D, and then you could technically do 4th finger or 5. Either way is correct. So keeping those the latter part of the measures in your mind, the melody there. So let's try that one more time. Measure 5 to 8. And then meanwhile with the chords as blocked, 2, 3, measure 7, 2, 3, measure 8. And then for practicing, we could combine the two. So blocked for the left hand initially. Measure 7, measure 8. So this is kind of a general approach, just to kind of simplify one of the hands to make it a little bit easier to navigate through. And then it goes back to the motive imitation figure that was at the opening 2 lines. So I would continue to focus on the blocked for those, kind of what I just mentioned at the beginning of the video. Okay, so now getting into this really long slur across 4 bars here at 13. So let's isolate and practice in chunks. So we have measure 13 by itself. That one seems pretty easy enough, right? Nothing too crazy, but we're going to try it 2 more times. Next time. Okay, so now going into 14. So this is where, so the thumb is staying as it normally would on the F, but then our top part of the hand, we have to reach the 6th in the melody. So it's a pretty, I mean, not a big change, but it kind of catches people off guard quite a bit when they get to this measure. So practicing the maneuver here. So what if we did? And actually, I'm gonna play the downbeat of 14, but by the time I hit that, my 2-5 is ready, right? So it'll look like this. So moving that 2 over, and then naturally the hand will kind of reach a span of a sixth here if I have that 2 on the A. Let's try that one more time. 13. And I feel like as long as you have that 2 gap here, your hand will be good to go. Okay, so now let's try the next part of the melody. So just isolating 14, and then we'll do 13, 14. So measure 14. 2 more times. 1 more time. Okay, so now let's go back to 13. We're going to do this 3 times at least to get that 2 over with the skip there on 14. But starting at 13. Ready, and... Let's try it 2 more times. Ready, here we go. All right, one last time. 1, 2, 5, 4, 3, 2. All right, hopefully that went pretty well. Now we have the latter part of the melody here, 15, 16. So after we have this, then we're gonna resume like a 5-finger pattern here with the thumb right next to your 2 finger on G. And here's the cross under with the thumb to reach that F. So doing 15 and 16 as a chunk. Ready, here we go. 1, 2, 3, thumb. 2 more times. Last time. Okay, so now we're going to do 14, 15 as one little chunk here. So this requires the thumb to go from F to G into the new bar. So same tempo, if you can, measure 14, 15. 3 times. Ready, and... Two more times. Last time. Awesome. Okay, so now putting it all together. 13 to 16. I'll go a tiny bit slower. 1 and 2, and here we go. Off. Awesome. Okay, meanwhile with the bass part, we have measure 13, 5, 7, 1. So the part that you want to watch out for, and this will make total sense when you put it together actually, because you got that octave span while you're trying to do all this other stuff in the right hand with the fingering and the legato and consistent 8th note pulse. So it's a lot going on where you have to like all of a sudden reach. So couple of things here actually. Technically, if it's easier for you, measure 14, you could do 1, 2. So 1, 2, 1, 2, and you're like a little bit closer to that lower C there. But if not, you can just do 1, 3 there and then slide. Okay, so we're going to try this in time. Let's try this approach. So we're going to hold the chord for 3 beats each. And then we're going to hit the downbeat of measure 15. And that's it. So we're going to go from 13 to 15, hold. Ready, 13. To anticipate Okay. I know this stretch is kind of gnarly, so I don't know if I would quite recommend that for most people. But yes, we can try just the downbeat, keeping it kind of like spread a little bit, because remember, you do have to reach up. Okay, so next step, we're going to hold for 3 still, but when we get to measure 15, we're going to go bottom, top, hold, like that. So from 13 to 16. Ready, and 2, 3, 2, 3, bottom, top, hold. Okay, so you can apply that practice method to the right hand melody as written. So it looked like something like this, measure 13. Okay, and then as written will feel the same as when you're doing the A section with the bottom, top, top figure in the bass clef with the melody. Okay, before I forget, one thing to keep in mind later when you are getting more familiar with this melody for the A section, if you think you're ready to do the waltz left hand, a typical kind of motion with this, down, up, down, up, up. And for balance, remember that accompaniment typically is a little bit lighter than the main melody, right? Okay, let's consider the B section. So this is where everything is flipped, where we have that legato left hand now with the melody, and you're doing supplemental right hand accompaniment chords, but they are short now. So you have to factor in the switch really quickly. But for practice, we can apply the same things that we did for the A section, right? So for example, if we're looking at melody, actually, we're in C position, by the way. 2, 3, 2, 3. So that was measure 17 to 20. So now for the chords in the right, you can just hold it. 2, 3, C major, 2, 3, measure 19, G7, 2, 3. So I'm doing just the shapes, anticipating what shape is coming up next per measure. And then we can add in the melody. 2, 3, 2, 3. And then another step up would be just doing non-staccato, just getting the pulse with the both. So what I typically see with this section actually is something like this. So both hands, of course, want to match, but you have to re-hit this. This is just a legato melody going up and down. So really hearing that connection in the left hand. If you find you're doing this, slow it down even more. So really feeling that legato, or take some steps back and just go back to this for a little bit before you try the as written. And then once you're really comfortable with the timing and the chords and the melody, then try to shorten your right hand. And you're going to keep those staccato chords really close. Think of a bounce. So I'm barely coming off of the keys here. I'm just keeping full contact. So that way I don't lose my spot for the chords, right? Okay, let's talk about the ending of this B section. So it pretty much repeats what you did at the beginning of the B section, but then, so there's that really quick octave higher, C, C, and that'll lead you back to the A section. So if we just isolated the left hand here, measure 23, 2, 3, 1, 2 and 3, and that leads you back to F position for the opening. Okay, and then if we did just blocked holds, 2, 3, 1. So keeping in mind, after you do this chord at the D, C, Al fine, all you have to do is revert back to F position. So you really don't need to move a whole lot. Just thumb goes up, right? So while you're playing this, you're automatically back to how you started the piece with the thumb on the F really quick, right? So places to really focus on are transitions, as always. Whenever you have to look into a new line, especially going into a different page, I would highlight practicing measures 16 to 17. So in time to rest, and then that D, C, Al fine. So those are a few spots, as well as technically you could also do 12, 13, because that's where that chordal pattern kind of abruptly comes in. So yeah, those are some highlighted spots I would consider practicing a bit more. Okay, now to end the video, I'm going to go ahead and play the piece with the repeat and the D, C, Al fine.